While in the process of setting up my NAS with the new motherboard, I figured I'd take out the home theater PC I built. Since I had to take it out anyway for maintenance and moving stuff around, I thought I'd just make a quick video on it just because I'd never done a video on this one. I did a video on a previous system I built, which was based on a motherboard that I ended up with. And and I ended up swapping out the motherboard with a newer one and getting a new CPU for it and turning it into a proper workstation slash gaming system for the TV. But I ended up taking that board out and putting it into my Hackintosh. So my Hackintosh is running that instead of the giant dual quad core Xeon board, and it works really well now. And actually since then I've actually taken that board out and swapped everything around again. So now it's got an i7 i377K, which is actually the original CPU I bought for my first Hackintosh. So it all came full circle. Anyway, that's my Hackintosh now. So I lost out on my home theater PC, and I wanted to have a system that would play Plex videos and ideally play Blu-rays straight from the disc. The reason for that is we rent videos, and like my wife just wants to be able to pop in a disc and watch it, and we don't want to have a separate Blu-ray player just for that one purpose. So it'd be nice if we could just pop in a disc, play it, and that's it. But the software kind of sucks for that on Windows, so I'm still looking at options. If anyone has any suggestions, I really just want to be able to put the disc in and it will play. I don't need menus or anything like that. I know MKV in combination with other software can do it, but I haven't found a really good guide on how to get that to work. So yeah, if anyone has a suggestion on how to do that, ideally, something using Make MKV, so it'd be free or cheap. I used to have a Cooler Master Elite 130 case, but I ended up having to get rid of that just because it doesn't really fit in the TV area we have. It won't fit in the shelves. So I wanted something flatter that would not only take a larger board than an ITX board, but also take a full optical drive, since I had a Blu-ray player just lying around. So this is the Silverstone ML03B. And it's a pretty good case. I mean, it's around 70 bucks. It's got like a brushed aluminum style front. I think it's actually just plastic. But yeah, you got USB on the front, headphones, which we'll never use, power, reset, the usual stuff. Like I said, a full optical drive, a little bit of air intake on the top with a magnetic filter. And most of the cooling is handled on the side. Around back, we can see that there is just standard motherboard, standard ATX power supply. It has low profile expansion cards. Like I said, it's kind of a limitation of where I'm putting the case. So I can't put a full height card in, which is fine because the card I have in here is more than sufficient. This motherboard is, well, you'll see. But yeah, we got audio out. None of this is used because we're using the HDMI and it carries the audio to the TV, Ethernet, USB, and VGA, again, not used, PS2, not used. The case is nice in that it's got an extra horizontal slot here that allows you to either put in a card here where there's no, a bracket where there's no card, like a serial port, that sort of thing, or you can actually run an extension cable, an extension ribbon out to there if you really need to. I don't really know why you would. It's only one slot, so it's not like you're going to be putting a video card there. But it is nice to have, and you can actually, and most cards, when you put in the low profile bracket, you lose the VGA connector. This would allow you to run a longer VGA cable to a connector here if you really needed VGA, although, for a home theater PC, you're not going to be using that. Well, here's the inside of this Frankenstein of a system. The motherboard is it's actually from an HP desktop. It's a MS7525 motherboard, which is just an OEM board. I think Dell uses them too. It's just a standard socket 775 motherboard. The CPU that came with it, I can't remember exactly which one it was, but it wasn't very powerful. So I took that out, and I actually had a Core 2 Quad 6600, and I put that in, and then I realized that only 2 cores show up. It does work fine, it just doesn't actually use 4 cores. Apparently it's because the VRM and everything is in the BIOS is just nothing set up to use quad core, which kind of sucks. So at some point I'd like to swap it out with a board. Really any board. The CPU is really not that important. It would be nice to use all quad cores though. The reason why the CPU is not important is because I bought an NVIDIA GTX 1050 Ti. Now it's important to get the 10 series, or presumably newer depending on what year you're watching this video. But the 10 series have hardware decoding for HVEC, aka H.265. That is a main requirement for me because I want to encode most of my videos, like all my newer videos, in H.265. The advantage is that it's about half the size for the same video quality. The catch is this CPU can't do it. It just breaks up and it's just a nightmare. But with this installed, it just plays back instantly. As soon as you hit play, it loads up and then the CPU usage just plummets, and it's all being handled by this chip. It's a very affordable GPU as well. I think it was like $120 or something like that. Low profile, doesn't need a power connector, just perfect. I mean, it's quiet. I really can't complain about it at all. It should be able to handle 4K. The sockets on the board are just the standard 16x PCI Express. There's also a 1x PCI Express, which I think came with a modem on this, but unfortunately, due to the layout, you can't use this with a GPU. It just blocks it, unless you have a very short card. If you have like a little USB controller or something, that'd fit, but anything bigger than that, it's going to block the airflow. There's also a 32-bit PCI slot, which of course no one's going to use. There's only 2 memory slots on this. I believe it only supports up to 4 gigs of RAM. I have 3 installed. That's what came with it. It works. I mean, you know, you're not multitasking. You're really just doing one thing on this thing, so it's not a huge deal. And Windows 10 is pretty efficient with memory these days. The CPU is just a stock cooler that came with it, made by Cooler Master of all companies, and yeah, it's fine. I haven't swapped out the fan for a Noctua because it's pretty quiet, and when the crappy bearings in this start to go, I'll just swap it out with a Noctua. Until then, I'll keep using this. There's also a small fan here. I think it's 62 millimeter. You can install up to 4 of them all along this edge if you need a lot of cooling, but I don't in this system. It's pretty low power. It's just the fan that came with the HP, so I'm not too concerned about swapping that out until it starts making noise. The SSD, just a older 128 gig SSD. It's only a 3 gigabit Samsung, but it's fine. It works. It's all you need. I won't be storing anything on this really. It's just for Windows. Optical drive, just leftover Blu-ray drive that I had sitting in the closet. Power supply, cheap ass CX430M from Corsair. Garbage power supplies, but I honestly have never had a problem with them, and I have like 4 of them. So I mean, I know they're made really cheap and a lot of people just stay away from them completely, but personally I've never had a problem with them. Obviously I'd recommend a better power supply if you're going to be using this a lot. This probably won't get, you know, massive amounts of use. It's not going to be on 24/7, that sort of thing. All in all, the only components I bought for this build are the GPU and the case. Really, the whole system was built from random parts I had lying around, and it will play a Blu-ray H.265 file, no problem whatsoever. And that's all I need it for. In fact, even the copy of Windows was free, because if you don't know this, it can save you a whole bunch of money if you're building systems. You can just get a copy of Windows 10. You just download it from their site. There's the media maker that they have. They'll just make a USB stick. You download it, and then when it asks you to register it during the installation and put in the serial number, just put in a Windows 7 or a Windows 8 key. And in fact, it will just take a Windows OEM key that normally you wouldn't be able to use, and it'll just accept it and authenticate it, and it's completely working. Like this one, I'm actually using the key from the HP. It had the COA on the case, and I just took a picture of it, and yeah, just put it in, works fine, it authenticates. And Windows 10 is even really nice about motherboard changes. In the past, if you used an OEM key, which is a key that was shipped to a manufacturer and is supposed to only work on that one system, it's not like you can take the drive out and put it in a new computer, it won't let you. The OEM keys used to be really picky. If you swapped out the motherboard, RAM, hard drive, all these things could cause it to just go, nope, won't work, and you'd have to call Microsoft and ask them to reactivate it. Now, Windows 10, it'll still flag it. It'll still say, oh, hardware changed, blah, 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 blah. But you can just, within Windows, just tell it to re-authenticate, and it will just connect to their servers and allow it to work. As far as I know, it has to be tied to a Microsoft account. I use a Microsoft account anyway to sync my desktop and everything between computers. So, I mean, it makes no difference to me. Your Microsoft account now will actually store your Windows keys, which is really cool. So if you swap out the drive, put in a blank drive with Windows on it, once you log into the Microsoft account, it basically just grabs the key off your account and authenticates it. It's really cool. But yeah, you do need a key, and they're pretty easy to get. Like I said, this one just came with the crappy HP. So whenever I find a case at work, I always keep track of the keys. I'll take a picture of it so I have it for later, and I just have a little spreadsheet of the keys I have and where they're used and the ones that I have available. So I think I have like 1 or 2 Windows 7 keys available right now that I have for future builds. And it's just a really good way to get a, quote unquote legal authenticated version of Windows. In case you're wondering why I'm not just using the HP case, I mean, hey, it came with a Windows key on it already. The drive that it came with was a DVD drive. And it has a little plastic flip down thing that the drive would push out, which is okay, whatever. Apple's been doing that for years. Other companies do that, just to make it look nice. But the problem was, it didn't actually use the eject button of the drive. It used a separate eject button that was wired into the back of the Blu-ray or the DVD drive. So it was this custom drive that they had with a connector for an external eject button. It was so stupid. I can't believe they went through the effort of doing that. I mean, that's really an Apple thing. I expect that from Apple, but I guess HP is just as bad. But yeah, it turned out when I built the whole system, I put the drive in, and then I tried to use it. I'm like, wait a minute, why isn't the eject button working? And I just had to disassemble it and really take a look at it and go, oh God, they need a damn custom drive. And obviously I wanted Blu-ray instead of just DVD, so I had to check the case. All in all, I'm pretty happy with this build. I mean, it was very cheap, a couple $100, and it does exactly what I needed to. It just plays videos. That's really all I needed it for. Like I said, I'd like to swap out the motherboard at some point with one that would actually let me use the quad cores, but it's not a big deal. It plays them fine now, so it's not hurting anyone. And yeah, maybe one with better RAM expansion. But again, CPU was free. Who cares if it's only using half the cores? It was from some system I took apart years ago. That's my current home theater PC.